Okay, I will call to order the Weathersfield School Board meeting, special meeting for May 20th, 2025 at 6:31 p.m. I guess we will start off with the pledge. Do you want to lead us?
Yeah, sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So this is a special meeting to discuss some staffing concerns that the teachers brought to us. And I will let you guys
All right.
take it away.
So since we're talking about staffing, I'll go ahead and talk about our newest staff member. We have Anna Bruns-Heck, who is going to be our kindergarten first grade teacher. So she was here for our Panther Cub night. And so I said, come on in for a little bit and spend a few minutes with her so that she can meet you. So welcome. We're excited to have you here as part of our
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. She comes to us from Heartland School, and before that, she was in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So we're excited to have her.
And she's amazing.
And yeah.
I'm from not far
Second
from there.
hometown.
I'm from Stroudsburg area.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were in Hershey for 30 years.
Okay.
All right, so here's our little presentation for the FY26 staffing and budget update. All right, so we did the timeline of the budget process, just to refresh everybody's mind of what happened. So we started off with the SU budget, went through. It was approved at the November 25th budget meeting, or the SU board meeting, and then that was, right before that, we were able to start with our budget. We had our BAC committee formed in the first part of October. We had multiple meetings with the BAC, then we presented the budget to the school board below the state mandated threshold, and then the school board, you guys did approve it on the 15th, 2 days later. Town meeting was on the 1st, and that was presented to the community. And then we actually voted on voting day on the 4th, and the budget did pass with 365 yes votes, 342 no votes. So it was a close budget vote. All right, so here is our current proposed schedule for FY26 with the specials. And so one of the questions that was brought up last week was how it's working out. So you can see that everybody's schedule is pretty compact. There is not very much free time, so to speak. We were able to, this is the first time that we've been able to do it, where we added a couple extra moments for our PE teacher to be able to have some extra time to prepare. You do notice that the primary grades are first. So K through 3rd grade, we do have those scheduled first to make the transitions from multiple grade levels easier. So she has a block of K through 3, and then she starts off with the 4th through 8th grade in there. And you can see everybody else's schedule is fairly similar as far as there's not very many open areas, with the exception of our library media assistant, who just has a lot of time on Fridays. Because she doesn't work on Fridays, so, okay. So that's why that one is blacked out. So, but other than that, so we do squeeze a lot into our specialist teachers.
Mhm.
Are there any questions on?
Just, so the blue, whatever is blue is an extra additional prep?
Well, these right here, the additional prep, these right here we plugged in for our art teacher,
Okay.
because she also has a special ed background. So we're able to do into the social emotional learning groups that she does with those students. So she's able to pull some kids out throughout the week and have groups, and she does like art therapy type groups.
So I have a quick question for PE
Yes.
that I wrote down. It looks like there's not a break every day.
There is,
like-
she does have a prep every day,
Okay, yeah,
which is standard according with the
Right.
master agreement. She does go straight through, but most people go straight through.
okay,
And then there are 3 extra spots right now
okay.
that we can have.
So from last week, what I heard intrinsically was that there was no time in between to prepare for classes, right? So,
Right.
so, and I don't see that there either, so what is the,
So, but typically you look at it, there's not any time to prepare for other classes as well. So because it is tight, that's why we have it broken up too, where it's K through 3, so it's similar materials that she's using that time. So there's not a lot of need for transition of materials.
okay,
Does that make sense?
right. Well, I see kind of going from middle school back to lower grades, like in the afternoon, so that
Right, but they're using.
doesn't make sense then.
It's
And
all
the-
fourth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
fourth
look
grade
at,
and
you
up.
see 6 to 8,
Yeah,
then
so
back
6
to
and
4, then
Mhm.
5, then back to 6 to 8, so I'm just
But
assuming.
is she using similar materials for all those grades? Or
I
Would
don't
you
just-
like to
know.
answer that,
Good question.
teacher?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no,
Mhm.
because it's different curriculum.
Mhm.
So,
So what do you do currently if you have a 6 to 8 and then you're going to a 4th with 0 minutes? What do you do?
that's a great question. It's very tricky, but I try to have the stuff in the room, out and ready to move quickly.
Good.
But I take time out of what we're doing for the class, or I'm setting up while they're doing a tag game, so I'm trying to split focus.
And how does that compare to her last year's schedule? Vincent had asked about that.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what you're doing, okay, yeah, I didn't realize you'd changed this.
I didn't see
Oh,
it
no,
on
we
the,
I don't think I have that.
you
on
wrote
the-
added in the email,
Yeah.
but nothing, I didn't see anything come through.
The schedule never came through with
No,
last year's schedule?
I don't think so.
Because it was added. Can you just check on yours, was it, skipped?
In the slideshow?
Want me to check, Brian?
Yeah, you don't know.
I thought I just wasn't seeing it, so it wasn't even, you weren't seeing either.
I kept looking and it didn't show up.
You guys should have told me about it.
I just figured it was my fault.
It was added.
Well, I can pull it up.
I can go get it.
Well, we could, can we let Laura, can you talk about
I have
your?
my copy right here.
Okay, there you go. So tell us what,
So right now I have 5-minute transition time in between, which is helpful, really helpful for the quick bathroom or to pull equipment out and put equipment off to the edge. Right now I have 3 in the morning and then I have my prep and lunch. And then I have 3 more and usually typically the afternoon is like we grouped before because they've done a good job of grouping. Okay, I have 5 to 8 in the afternoon, which is more similar than a K-4 curriculum. But, yes, and on Tuesdays, it's my K, and it's 4th grade, 2nd grade, prep lunch, 4th grade, 3rd grade. So that's where my Tuesday classes are all pretty much similar.
The 2, 6, 8 electives are currently together.
Back to back.
it's like if we're not going to speak now anyway, but.
You guys see that okay?
Yep.
That's last year's.
This is this,
This is the current year right
This
now.
is the
FY
current
25.
year and that's proposed for next year.
That's proposed.
My prep in the middle of the day
Not
helps
proposed.
me transition well, because I have that prep and lunch, where I can make a better transition.
And then she still said like 3rd grade and then 6th.
yeah, that, but so they're, right,
Helpful.
right.
And no open periods, whereas now she has 3 open periods.
There is no transition time. That's- Yeah, no, it's fine.
Or did you, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Did you say it's more helpful to have your prep later in the day instead of first period to set up?
Correct.
So it looks like that.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you got it.
Nope, okay.
I'll take a.
Oh,
I
yeah,
looked
sure.
and you asked your question.
Okay.
There we go. Dividing content.
So I just want to make a general comment, I think, to the group, that I feel like, so I've gone through this slideshow, but I feel like it's not exactly what we asked for you to come back with. I think we had discussed maybe like, what are your proposals, given what we heard? You know, like, this seems like more just, here's facts, not like, hey, let's
Well, I wanted to
rework what you
I
did.
want to give you the facts, and then
Okay.
I can give you my proposal at
Okay,
the end,
yeah.
so.
Okay, I'll wait for that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
these are the facts, I want to give you guys the facts so
Yeah.
that you can help make an educated decision. So, and I'll give you my recommendation. All right, any questions?
Well, I also want to say, like, it's not our job to make that
No, it's
decision.
ultimately my job.
And I don't want to be
Absolutely.
involved with that, but I think that we have
Thank
to
you.
figure out how to get you together. That's what I'm thinking is a real issue here. So, I mean, we can waste a lot of time in going over every prep period and every period, but I think the general gist is there's not a consensus between administration or teachers. That's my feeling, from what happened last week and what we're seemingly here for now. So finish your,
Okay.
you know,
If you want me
see
to
what the
finish, or we can
proposals are. I'm sure that there's a solution, but that's what we were looking for, was like, for you guys to come together and then come back with us for what the proposals might be, considering it wasn't favorable before. Does that make sense?
Okay, I don't 100% agree with
Sure,
what
you
you're
don't
saying.
have to.
And, I think that, so we've hired Brian to do a
I
job,
understand that. Yeah.
and the teachers have their opinions, but he doesn't necessarily need to.
I totally agree.
This is his
Okay.
ship, and if he,
Yeah, totally agree.
so I don't think that we necessarily need to make them come together. If he feels that this is gonna work, then I think we have to trust in him that this is gonna work.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide though, so we'll show. So we did do a proposed schedule though, so you guys can see it with an added elementary teacher. So this is for PE, since this is the one that was in question, this is the one that I just showed you a second ago. And then this one is if we add a teacher. So that's what the TBH is. So then because we have 35 slots in her day, we have 16 teachers right now, PE needs to be done twice a week, so that's 32 slots. Given 3 extra slots, we add an additional teacher in the elementary level, we would have 34 slots, so she'd have 1 slot
Extra,
extra.
1 extra prep.
Instead of 3, yeah,
Okay.
so 2 less.
This is what it costs for an average teacher. And one of the things was to do a support staff, and maybe have a full-time equivalent for a sports staff in there too, but that's also pretty expensive for a budget that was already passed. This is the projected class sizes that I have, as of right now. So we have 15 and 16 in first and kindergarten. And then we have 12 in second grade, 13 and 14 in third grade, 15 and 16 in fourth grade, 13 and 14 in fifth grade, 15 and 13 in sixth grade, 24, and then 15 and 15, for a total of 237 kids right now. So we have on the books as of today. So if we add an additional teacher, that's what it would bring the class sizes down to. If we add an additional elementary teacher,
So both kindergarten and first grade would have a class of 11 and 12.
correct.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
I got a question probably for Christine. Last night at the SU meeting, it took place pretty quickly, but there was some percentages we fell at 9.8. I didn't exactly understand what that was about, but we fell right in the middle where we should be in
Angie's
staffing level.
presentation with the
Oh,
staff.
yes, the title on comparability.
And I didn't ask the question at the time, what adding a staff member is gonna bring that proportion down. Are we gonna fall outside of that window that's recommended?
Possibly, I think she tested it with Heartland and it definitely did.
Yeah. Are there consequences if you're not in that window?
Yes, there are. You have to adjust your staffing.
Okay,
So, yes, that is.
And we also have to be conscious of per pupil costs as well.
yes, exactly.
So this is your next slide.
And then one of the things, because currently we moved an elementary school teacher to middle school. And so if we move the middle school teacher back to elementary school, because that's why we have now a combination class, So that's what the numbers do for there. The numbers in elementary school stay the same on the last slide, the proposed one, but then our numbers in sixth grade go up to 27. So we'd have 27, 24, and 15 and 15. Okay. So these are some things to consider when we're taking a look at that. The FY25 deficit as of May 16th for special education is $1.2 million. We're on the hook for 25% of that. That could change. And that's sort of a worst case scenario right now. Is there space in the building? Pretty tight. We can make it. Supplies, equipment, so if we add another teacher, all those things go up. And then with H454 and FY27, we already are looking at a $150,000 increase. Minimum. This is sort of our cluster of where we want class sizes to be.
So currently for K, for first and kindergarten, we're at the lowest end of the optimal class range with 15
And actually in some of
students.
the other grade levels, we're lower.
We are lower, yeah.
We're lowering that to at 12. And then this is what H454 is talking about with class sizes going up. And our numbers happen to be 450 if we're 6 through 12. That's just looking at that as well. So 1 through 4 should be a minimum class size of 15. 5 through 12 should be a minimum class size of 18. So planning a little bit for the future.
All right, Sarah's trying to get back in and multitasking. I'll go to the next slide.
So there's our enrollment over the years. And this does include our numbers of students that are homeschooled or students that are going to alternate placements that are provided. So we have, right now, we have 243 students. So we sort of topped out in 23, 24 at 271, and we've been progressively dropping a little bit with enrollment. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is some of the growth, because we kept talking about growth of students. We haven't had that much. Like I said, we topped out 2 years ago, but these are some of the things that we've added to make it more meaningful to students with Chromebooks, Makerspace, having Leader and Me, electives, leadership. Students are going to be excelling with that this week again. DEI, curriculum continually being updated, visual arts, athletics program, SEI, alternate learning opportunities through grant, and introducing new musical programs like having choir, which has been stuff. So we've been able to do a lot with what we've been given.
What's your last slide?
Okay. So since we did the budget was passed in March, I don't think it's necessary at this time to add an additional teacher. If there's concerns about, we've never told anybody no about being able to use the restroom. If we need to add some help in there in PE, we can add help as far as with an existing para. We can do that to make transitions if she is needing help. But I don't think it's financially responsible to add an additional teacher at this time. If that's something we want to look for towards next year, before we do the budget process and have our town voted on it, I'm all for that. If we want to have a teacher be part of the BAC, absolutely. We can do all those things, but
Good idea.
I don't think, my recommendation is to keep the status quo right now. If we need to make some adjustments, we can look at even the prep period for our PE and see if that's even feasible to move it. But right now, after looking at it and having all the work that we did, this is the best schedule we came up with that fits the needs for the majority of everybody. Any questions?
Not from me. Any questions?
But the additional teacher doesn't fit into the budget that was passed in March.
Correct.
So
So we have to
his
overspend.
recommendation is to leave it
Right.
as it is, and we'll talk about another teacher come next budget season if we feel that one's necessary. We'll add
And the
one in.
real estate isn't available for that teacher to have a room either, am I correct?
We could make it, we have right now, we have OT, PT, and one of our SEIs that uses one of our classrooms. We could try to find small spaces for them, but they wouldn't be able to do some of the PT and OT in a small size classroom. They'd have to do it in the hallways or maybe the AP room or even possibly the gym and share that space again with PE then.
Possible, but not most convenient.
Right.
Megan, do you have anything?
No, I think this, I really appreciate putting this together. It makes a lot of sense. I think my question more to the group is, my question from last week is the growth at Weathersfield is more than just students, right? Looking at that as a pretty big list. But with these changes, was there anything else outside of 2 teachers or even 1 teacher that we could work with that could help? Is there any further thoughts on that? Just finding the group.
Possibly an assistant to Laura would help. There was a way to adjust that. We only currently budget for 1 paraprofessional, full-time paraprofessional in our building. And she obviously gets utilized other places, including special ed.
So it sounds
Is that
like,
is that our locally funded
Correct.
para that's doing special education for?
Some,
Okay. So I'm just a little bit confused. Our para does special ed when we have that covered by the SU? Is that right?
She fills in and she's assigned the spots right now that yes, so, but we also can have parents that work with other kids, like doing yard duty
Yeah.
and stuff like that, that would be, so it's sort of a balance.
Right.
Is it ideal for us? No, it's not. Would I prefer to use her other places? Absolutely. Right now, we gotta get kids their minutes and make sure that they're being covered as best as possible.
Right. So but that person is funded by Weathersfield and
Correct.
not the SU?
Correct.
So is there an option like where that person ends up doing, gym assistant, setting up, I don't know, something like that?
We can have her
I
help
mean-
with that. We can have that person help with that for sure.
Right, yeah,
And that's definitely a possibility. But we wanna make sure that we're utilizing that person as best as possible for
Right.
sure. Absolutely.
I don't know, the mechanism about getting another pair from the SU, cool. That should be doing hours with students and not like hours. Just,
Yeah,
I don't know how that works, but to me, I'm like, what? We need this, they're asking for help and we're not using our person that we're paying for.
So Katie will do this, I mean, she does the service plan,
Right.
it changes based on
Yeah.
needs and people that move in. I don't know exactly, how it's going with this particular individual, but I know when staff are out, we have to cover those minutes and sometimes people get pulled. I know we all try to work together because these are all our kids and we don't necessarily, when we've talked about, special ed, the model where you are tied to just the students you service, it creates less flexibility because those staff aren't able to work with other students, and we do that now. And special ed students work with regular ed students, regular ed paras work with special ed students based on the needs of the kids and groupings. So it's more efficient, I hear you, and I think we should look at ways that we can.
Yeah,
Sure.
so what is the cost of an assistant or like what?
It could be about 71,000
Full-time.
for full-time.
Right. Do you feel like that full-time is necessary?
No.
Okay.
And it's
Clearly harder to get a part-time person, but you never know, like, there's a lot of retired folks that, might be grandparents, something, that type of thing, it's around, right?
Yeah.
So it's an option.
I think we can make do with what we have, for sure. We might have to be a little bit flexible, a little bit creative in the schedule, but I definitely think we can make do with what we have.
It sounds like moving Laura's prep later in the day would help. I think that's why I clarified that with her. I know last time we talked about, and it's challenging for a PE teacher. It's a shared space. Stuff happens there after school, so she can't, when you're a classroom teacher, you can often set up for the next day before you can leave for the day. And oftentimes she can't do that. So I'm assuming the thinking was the first period prep would allow her to set up. But maybe that's not the best place in the schedule for her prep time. She's saying it's not, so I think that's something we should look at, yeah.
But 3 extra blocks, or 1 on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, move in the right direction.
It's definitely helpful.
I have a question in my email, sort of for Brian and you, but, would it be better to like combine 2 classes sometimes? No.
We just did that.
We did that before,
Well,
and
no,
we didn't like,
I'm asking is
yeah,
that
that's a good question.
when my kids were in the school, there were a lot more kids in the school. And then each grade had like 40-something kids. So, you know, there were 2 classes, but they each had over 20 kids. So I was just thinking.
Yeah.
I would say no, I'd rather keep the
Yeah.
classes smaller myself.
And that was one of the things we did, is we did have one class that was combined, and so we did separate that
Then
class.
she's had another prep, but she also had a bigger class.
Right. We did talk about that, separated that
So it
class.
wasn't done.
Your desire, yes.
No.
The thing that I think we are talking about, excuse me for speaking out, but one of the things we continue to talk about is the number. And we talk about the number of students, but we have to look at the bigger picture of those particular students and needs. And we're not looking at that, which you wouldn't know the needs of those students. The combined class was a tough class, and we did the best we could. Laura did the best she could.
Absolutely.
She did it willingly at the moment and has now said, we don't want to do that again, right? Because it's not about the numbers. The numbers look lovely, they look small, but they're really, the students are not, they have higher needs than they've ever had before. And we're not typically fully staffed here for the kids that need that type of one-on-one time or help. We do the best we can, but that's what we continue to do, right? We continue to do the best we can or make do with what we have. And so that is why we've come to you guys to say, this is really difficult. It's burning out teachers, it's burning out kids because they're not getting what they need. They're not building the relationships with the adults in the building that they need to have. And it's making things difficult. And so we're only asking because we see the future, we see what it looks like now. We're the ones here doing the work. Brian gets pulled out of his office often. Multiple people get pulled out of their offices often. That takes away time from other kids. That takes away time from the teachers being able to do the work that they need to do with these students. I don't feel that we are doing our due diligence oftentimes with students in the building, even though we are trying to do the best that we can. But I think that's the part that we need to look at. We need to stop looking at just the numbers, because the numbers don't really show, they don't reflect what a day in the life of a teacher or any staff in this building is going through and the things that we need to make sure that the kids are getting what they need as well.
So I think, so Brian did mention the idea of, because what we're kind of talking about here is that at this point, it's way too late to add a $100,000 teacher into the budget. We need you guys to come with this stuff way sooner. So I think adding a teacher on the BAC is a great idea. I would like to see that happen for this year. I'd also like to see the process move up a little bit. I think Sarah and I were talking to you about this at the end of last year's budget. Like when you start talking to the BAC, I think we should also start talking on the board about the budget too. So the same, like when you do present to the BAC, do the same thing to us at our meeting.
Okay.
And so that we can be in it along the way. And I think it would be great to have a teacher on the BAC to give their input for next year.
We agree.
Okay.
Up until this point, we haven't been privy to that information. We haven't been, to my knowledge, and
Yeah,
to
is
be
there-
a part of the BAC.
Is there a conflict or anything? That'll be okay?
It has,
Okay.
actually, it has been said in the past, there's a conflict for staff to be on the BAC.
Right.
We had a staff member on the BAC previous years, and it was frowned upon.
All right. Well, it can be frowned upon as long as it's not illegal.
We've done it.
Should we
We've done it in other districts.
find out, like, where would we find out?
She said,
We've done it.
Okay, so if they're
Yeah.
a staff member and they're a community member, because they
Right.
have to be a community member to be on the
That would make
BAC,
sense.
correct?
Yeah.
A tax.
So it would
Yeah,
limit,
so somebody who lives in Weathersfield and is on our staff, which I think we have plenty of, right?
And we understand it's late in the game, but we also have to wait until the budget passes. We also have to wait until the schedule comes out. We also have to wait until all of those pieces
Yeah.
that we are privy to all of that information. So yes, we understand that it's late in the game, but we also know that we haven't had the opportunity
Mhm.
until now to be able to ask
Mhm.
or
Yep.
express the difficulties that we see moving forward.
So, yeah,
To the
so I
board,
think,
I would say, to the board.
Yeah.
We have spoken to Brian, obviously.
To throw this out there, because I did do BAC,
Mhm.
and coming, I think is a really good idea. I will say though, I think we all need to learn more about how we tackle this need, because right, it's not about the numbers, it sounds like this is a big list, and it's more about individual students. And when you look at how you're doing budget and how that is kind of separated and put in a different pile, it is really difficult to allocate based outside of that system. So I do still think if there's an unmet need, we have to figure out like what, to the best of our ability, like what is that, outside of adding teachers, because what I'm hearing is you could add those teachers, which would be helpful, but you still have individual needs that we're maybe not equipped to deal with at the school. And so even just being on the committee, you still don't have that insight, because the way it's allocated to the SU, you don't have the ability to essentially pull that money back into Weathersfield, unless I'm speaking out of turn.
It depends on the needs. So, I mean, you just saw the special ed budget is over, and that is because there were unexpected needs. And it's not an immediate fix usually, right? So if there's a student that's displaying needs, and it usually comes out behaviorally, academically as well, there's a process that we have to go through before we get there. And so that's frustrating for everybody involved, although there's a lot of work being done to try to put supports in place with the resources that we have. And we will obviously support all our students all the time, but once you get through that special ed process, there may be additional supports assigned to a student. That's not always the case, but often is the case, and it's not always the answer either, to be honest with you.
And that's
it
what I
helps,
mean, though,
yeah.
is once it's, if you don't have the, whatever evaluations you need and all that isn't bucketed before then, you don't have the ability to pull it back out from the SU and give it to Weathersfield. So I don't have the answer, I do not have the answer. But what I'm putting out is, whatever these unmet needs are, we have to figure out what they are and how we communicate that before budget for whatever it is, because if not, it's not going to be in Weathersfield's budget, because that's segregated out and split. So I do think this is a really good idea, but I don't know that that is going to check all of our boxes, just to be transparent.
And if there are needs, special ed needs that arise outside of budgeting, we have to fill those legally, and we do, which can have budget implications. So if there is an unmet need at Weathersfield and a student qualifies that wasn't planned for, and there is a determination by the IEP team that student needs additional supports, and we don't have the staffing to do that, we have to hire somebody. And we've had to do that this year. But it is complex and complicated, and everybody works so hard, and I get it. I was a teacher, Brian was a teacher, we totally understand where you're coming from and want to do the best we can to support you and the kids, and be mindful of, the financial responsibility as well, so.
The class sizes just aren't in our favor, especially with what's coming, and so we don't have that lever. What are other ways to tackle burnout in this group? Are there any other ways to look at this? I don't foresee us getting past the class size issue, especially with what's coming.
Yeah, it's
And even
not
if we
looking
had
great for next year.
If we had the budget, we still wouldn't be able to keep the teachers given the class size requirements. So this is the piece that is there, another way to reflect and to share more information about how we can make meaningful changes that make, keep you guys engaged and not burned out. I don't know enough to have suggestions yet.
So I'm just curious, I heard that there were previous engagements or meetings about this subject. What were the outcome of those meetings? I mean, this question for both of you.
We meet with Brian regularly. We, in terms of meeting about Laura's particular schedule, we usually do that at the end of the year. It's been at least 3 years now that we've discussed her schedule with Brian, normally at the end of the school year, right? Like after the schedule comes out. And we've discussed the difficulties that she's had. Like I said, she has volunteered, sort of, to give it a try, right? And now we've gotten to the point where it's become even more difficult.
And when we build a schedule for the school year, we look at Laura's schedule first because hers is the most difficult to be able to do.
Yeah, I can
And
see
then we
that.
build off of that. So everybody else's special schedule, everybody else's is built off the PE schedule because she has the most commitments for minutes for students. And then she also, and the schedule doesn't have any duty schedule.
There's no time.
Yeah, there's no time for her to have duty, so she doesn't have duty, which everybody else has duty.
Which is okay
Yeah.
because she's with students.
Yes.
Right? Like it's not like she's,
Yes, but I'm just making sure that, like, we're not adding that onto her too, so.
staff understand that, union understands.
Okay, thank you. That's why I want to make sure.
We understand that. She's with students, it's
Yes,
not
she is.
free time that.
No, she's not,
comes out,
you know,
nothing.
she's not hitting Dunkin' Donuts or
She doesn't
anything.
have-
So in the last 3 years, what were the meaningful changes that occurred when you were working on this together?
We've adjusted the schedule as
Just-
best we can. We've listened to what she said.
Okay.
She's been open to trying different things as far as having the combined classroom, also mixing the PE schedules so that we can have electives for students, so they have a choice in the afternoon. And she's tried it out. She's told us things that have worked and haven't worked, and we've made those adjustments as best we can with it, and trying to give her the opportunity to have a schedule and trying to keep her numbers lower. It is difficult on Fridays. Fridays tend to be a bigger day because we are short one person because she didn't want to work that day. I'm picking on you, Tara. I'm kidding. You know me. I
Would you
do
like to
homework.
work at PE?
Oh,
I mean,
I didn't
there
think
you
about that
go,
one. Hey, that's
multitasking.
Yeah.
She'll do it.
I don't have the certification, but I could be.
Assistant.
Could be an
Assistant.
Assistant.
That's thinking outside the box. That's not a bad thing.
Well, that's what we're,
Yeah,
that's what we're
exactly.
doing
That's
here.
what they,
I mean,
that's,
it would increase the budget by just by one day, though, right? Like by a point two.
I'm good with that.
Half a day. Oh, half a day, yeah. We can convince it. Don't.
It would be.
Well, then, actually, we don't want her to be full-time.
I'm not worried about like
Yeah,
25
that's-
grand.
yeah, that's,
We can certainly.
we can look at it. That's,
Right.
in all fairness.
But building-
Not
well,
joking aside.
Building on this though, is there any other staff that are not here all the time that might be curious about those hours? I don't know.
I don't currently have anybody right now,
Okay.
but we could look and see if somebody wants to help out.
I think we only have a couple of paraeducators that don't work full week, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we only
They are
have
willing
one
to.
right now, but she's also retiring.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but then we have someone else that helps. We can look and still see. I'm not saying no options. Obviously, if we can find an option, we want to make everybody as happy as possible. I just can't justify an additional teacher.
I think we're all agreed
I just, I
That's
keep
not
looking at it.
an option, but there's
And
probably a
Our
multitude
PE
of other
yeah.
small
we've got a
shifts
great
maybe that
PE
you can do.
program and we want to keep our great PE
Right.
program and we want to keep her
Right.
happy, absolutely. But we can look at it, or, I mean, I can still look at other options, absolutely, but they just have to be less expensive options. I can't, we're all in agreement with that.
We
Mm-hmm.
definitely agree.
Just for the sake of, playing this out, is the board in support of, adding additional time to potential part-time employees to mitigate the problem? Just so we don't have to have another meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I say
Yeah.
yes.
yeah. long as you can
All
find
right,
the
I will
money.
explore those options.
May I ask another question? Is there a possibility of a shared situation? We've done that before in the past with other schools, that maybe they have a part-time staff that would be willing to come over here.
We don't have another part-time PE teacher currently.
I mean, if it was an assistant, we wouldn't need a PE teacher, correct? If it was an assistant to Laura.
I mean, a part-time staff member.
Staff.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if that was
Good
a
idea.
shared situation that could also be a possibility.
Mhm.
And grant-funded positions are still funded
Yeah.
positions. So if
That'd be
there is
great.
the possibility of writing a grant.
Yeah,
Or
anybody wants to
receiving-
write a grant, we love grants.
Just snowballing another
Yeah.
idea that possibly we could do
Yeah.
a grant to fund another
Yeah.
position or.
And like I mentioned, if there's any kid, student teachers
Right.
available, that would be
Funny,
great.
there aren't a lot of people going into education right
Yeah.
now.
No,
That was a fairly secure job market.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's helpful, thank you.
So what
Okay.
are the next steps, or
I
you know,
think
we're at the end of the year.
as far as I'm
Let me finish
concerned,
talking.
okay.
We're at the end of the year, so I realize we're not gonna resolve this problem by that time. But I think we should make a plan for there to be options, or, you know, whatever you've done
Yeah, I agree.
at our, I don't know what meeting, because the retreat, I don't know whether we can do that or not.
We can
Um,
do it at the start of the retreat.
It's warned.
What's
Yeah,
that?
we can do it at the start of the retreat and then go
Oh,
on to,
okay.
yeah.
Great.
So we can look at options and see.
Okay,
John?
go ahead, John.
This is a tough conversation, I understand the wants, but an even tougher conversation, we'll be sitting in this room in March with a failed budget. So I think we absolutely have to look at the bottom line. A handful of votes is all it takes to flip, and we got a failed budget.
Yeah. We only passed by 13.
So, okay, so we don't need to vote on anything, so we're not doing anything? Yeah. So we're gonna let Brian work some magic and do what his job is. As he's been doing. So. Okay, did Sarah have anything to say, or I didn't hear, or see her hand or
She's
anything?
there.
Okay.
Yeah, she's there.
Okay, all right, she doesn't have her hand up. Oh, there she goes. Yes, Sarah?
I'm here. I've just been listening.
Okay.
I think everything that I would bring up has been brought up, so I was just listening.
Okay. Sounds good. So Algebra 1, we have on the agenda. So we had a meeting, SU meeting last night, where it was brought up, they decided not to vote on rescinding the current Algebra 1 program. It wasn't voted on, because Heartland has not had time to properly discuss it amongst all their board members. So, so they're leaving an option open at the high school level to allow Heartland or Weathersfield to send students if we choose, but we've already come up with a separate plan. So I believe we're planning to stick with that. Heartland said they might have 3 or 4 kids to send if they decide, because they don't have any, currently in their budget, they don't have any way to have Algebra 1 at their school like we do. So, so they're.
They could do, VTVLC, some options, but I think they want to discuss if that's the best
Okay.
route for their kids.
Yeah,
So,
so they're still discussing it, so it's a possibility that they may be sending a few kids to Windsor.
and I'm charged with getting the math teachers together, over the next couple of months and having them really talk about whether the program is working the way it was intended, or if there's a different option that might be a better option for the kids.
Mhm.
So status quo for this year, but next year there may be changes.
Does Windsor currently offer eligible 1 to 8th graders?
They do.
I think it's important that the district try to make it uniform across all 3 entities.
Mhm.
If any way possible. Otherwise, we're
Well,
sending our kids with a slight disadvantage.
yeah, well, we're still gonna offer Algebra 1 here.
Right.
Just as we're gonna have it as an online program here,
Right.
but yeah.
So just to clarify, John, too, so we've noticed in the past that our students that go on to algebra are missing a big chunk out of that 8th grade math, so that's why we want our students to take 8th grade math as well as take algebra,
Right,
those students.
That was the concern that
Yeah.
Harlan had, that they were gonna miss out with the normal.
Right, and we want to, and that's been our concern, and we've seen that over the last several years. And then talking to our feeder high schools, they noticed that some of the students that are coming into geometry are struggling in certain subject areas, so we want to make sure that they have that good basis. Plus the algebra, and those students that usually take math, more advanced math, that can definitely be their elective. They will choose to take that as an elective.
All right, anyone have any other questions about Algebra 1? Okay, and executive session, we don't have any need for that. So our next meeting is our board retreat, which I don't have the date of handy, but,
June 10th,
June 10th,
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
I sent the draft agenda.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have that.
I mean,
And, so I guess if no one has anything further, I'll take the motion to adjourn. You wanna make that motion? Okay, John's made the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very
Aye.
good.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, well, thank you, everybody, and,